Oh, we're live. I
We are.
I don't pull the trigger now. You're doing it, and I still get confused when we go.
I thought if I was starting the show, you wouldn't be as confused. But hey,
I was
things
just
haven't
wait.
changed so
I
much
was just
in all
waiting
this
for
time.
something to happen there to like trigger that. Hey, we are live. Then I realized, oh, there's a little red live thing, and then we have a little counter up in the corner. I've completely forgotten how all this works. I
That's
think we're
because, Doug, it's the Two Bros Wrestling Show, but this bro hasn't been seen in a month. Welcome, everyone, to the Two Bros Wrestling Show. Thank you for joining us after our month's vacation. But, Doug, do you realize this has been 3 months since you've been on the Two Bros Wrestling Show?
I think it's safe to say that there were some contract disputes that kept me off the broadcast for a while. Then we rolled into the holiday season, but all that has resolved itself, and I'm back on air now. And maybe we could just leave it at that.
We back on air. Look what Santa folks brought us for Christmas. Under the tree, we found Doug. What a wonderful time. Hopefully you all have had a wonderful holiday.
Absolutely.
And as you can see, it's that time of year, the once time of year that I don my finest Tux t-shirt, because tonight is the Two Bros Wrestling Show Awards show. Which,
Woohoo!
once again, Doug, we're going to look back as we did last year at this time and give out some hardware. I guess some fake hardware, since we don't actually have trophies here to hand out. But if you're watching, folks, we are going to talk best wrestler, male and female, tag team, announcer, match, all this great stuff. And we want you to chime in. Let us know what you think of our picks and who you would choose if you were doing this. Thank you for hanging with us over I guess 48-hour delay. I know we were supposed to be on Thursday night, but I had some snow issues here in our area, and we're afraid that we were going to lose power and didn't want to cut out in the middle of such an important show.
Absolutely. This is such an important show, and my triumphant return to the announcer's booth. So I didn't want it to be cut short by just a boom. I didn't want that to happen to us.
It is true that even though you haven't been on in 3 months, that wasn't by design. There were several times you were supposed to be back on the show, and we advertised you as coming back on the show. We were going to have a 3-man booth at one point with our friend David Hall and David Poole, rather, and you just things happen.
Things happen. I blame some of these things on Peacock.
True, that's what happened one night. But the Peacock notwithstanding, Doug.
Oh, it's been too long.
Quick opening bell. You remember that sound? When I say quick, I mean quick. I have 2 news items that I want to talk about so that we can get and spend time handing out awards. But it would be remiss if we did not talk about the fact that 2022 is starting off the same way for WWE, at least, as they ended 2021, and that's Happy New Year, you're fired. More layoffs at WWE right after the first of the year. This time it targeted a mix of both wrestling talent and a lot of behind-the-scenes talent. So running through them real quickly, wrestlers included the very talented Timothy Thatcher, Hideki Suzuki, who's from that Diamond Mine stable, Danny Burch, who you could sort of see coming because he was of that age and odd man out, hadn't seen for a while. And Doug, Samoa Joe has the distinction of being fired twice by WWE within 1 calendar year.
So just a side note here, like Thatcher, Burch, and Joe, I think this last round of firings were all addressed as they're not talent related. These are backstage positions. So I guess since Joe had been pulled from in-ring action, that there were no plans for him to return to in-ring, just like Thatcher and Burch, where they were in more of like coaching producer roles, I guess, for NXT. But since NXT's all bright and shiny and not grungy and metal anymore, I guess that didn't quite work anymore.
And obviously, the Diamond Mine release would be not fit that mold.
Right.
That would be a talent. But yes, as you said, backstage, a lot of these were. To get to some of those, former ROH booker Gabe Sapolsky was one that was let go, as was Scott Armstrong, as was Road Dogg, who I guess can now go to AEW and reform the New Age Outlaws.
That's what the Gun Club needs, little Road Dogg.
And then honestly, I think to me the most surprising and just I guess the clear sign that NXT as we know and loved it to begin with is truly dead is William Regal. I mean, Sir William Regal. Surely there's got to be a announcing or excuse me a producing role or a coaching role at AEW. Why in the world you would let someone as talented and as much of a company man as William Regal? I mean,
absolutely. I mean, this man. I mean, above and beyond whatever you gave him, he was like, "All right, I'll work with it." Whatever it was.
And how good was the product as he did it? So, yeah, I mean,
you know, truly, I think the best on-air authority figure that NXT ever had.
And I would even say you can probably spread that across the WWE universe and talk about all the WWE shows that he was the best authority figure. He was never one that played one side or the other. You didn't have the heel commissioner role. He was just William Regal.
He was just, you know, that's it right there. He was just William Regal.
So there you go. Best of luck, I guess, in your future endeavors, and best of luck if you're still on NXT and were there before it became 2.0, because there's got to feel like there's a target on your back. But Doug, rather than transition from something negative, I want to go positive. One more news item, and this one's a positive, and that is the return of New Japan Pro Wrestling to American television.
Yes.
New Japan Pro Wrestling left Access when Impact's parent company purchased Access and pretty much booted New Japan off of the air in favor of putting on Impact. But I guess time heals all wounds, and also very eager to get back into the American market and on American television. New Japan Pro Wrestling will now actually appear in a wrestling block with Impact and sort of in association with Impact. They'll be on Thursday nights at 10 o'clock as soon as Impact ends, and that'll start here in January with what they're calling classic episodes. So they'll probably just repackage some of their pay-per-view and New Japan Pro World stuff. And come March, they're going to start with original programming. So good news for those of us who have missed seeing as much New Japan Pro Wrestling as we had been used to in the past. American fans who aren't familiar and will have a chance to test that out without having to, to pay for the streaming option. This will be exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing New Japan back, see what they do.
Absolutely. Gobble up. If you have not seen any New Japan, gobble it up while you can. Go do your homework now. Just Google some or, hit YouTube and search for, Okada. That's all you really need to see. Okada, Jay White. That'll lead you down a rabbit hole. Bullet Club. Get ready, folks.
Yeah, good stuff. And then when back on American TV, who knows what all they'll be able to accomplish since they have an American dojo. I know the plans pre-pandemic was for touring. And then, of course, the pandemic threw a wrench in everybody's plans. Right. But now, with touring a thing again and New Japan on the road in Japan, who knows? Maybe you'll see the two bros at a New Japan show at some point in the next year. That would be fantastic.
That would be awesome.
And before we talk, Doug, about the next year, let's talk about the last year. Folks,
let's do it.
It's the main event time. And before we start with the awards, we're going to talk about the three biggest stories that, in our minds, dominated the world of professional wrestling in 2021. Doug, let's do this reverse style. 3 counting down to 1. I don't care to start unless you would want to.
You should really go ahead because this is not in my notes. You go, I'll react. How about that?
Let's do it. For me, this was a very eventful year in wrestling, but if I had to rank things, I would say that number 3 for me would be NXT 2.0. Yeah. Essentially, you have the product that everyone, pretty much if you are a hardcore wrestling fan, you would agree that NXT was the best product WWE had going, and then they blew it up. And I understand that they very decisively lost a sort of made-up ratings war, and if you weren't going to win that and you didn't have that as bragging points and you're going to pull the same rating regardless of what you put out there, why were they giving all this money to a bunch of folks who earned more because they've been around longer, and when you could, give a crumb to some guys that were hungry and pop the same rating? I sort of, from a business standpoint, get it, but you talk about something that sort of changed the landscape of WWE, and that is blowing up NXT and having NXT 2.0. So that's my number 3 story of the year. Doug, number 2 for me, I thought was ROH. Very similar sort of story in that a product that was beloved by fans wasn't maybe the same at the end, and that's actually a topic that we're going to have on next week's Two Bros Wrestling Show. Yep. Make that and put that in your notes. We'll talk a lot more about Ring of Honor, but essentially Ring of Honor spent the last 20 years as the proving ground. It was NXT before there was an NXT. It was the minor leagues, I guess, if you know, that sounds derogatory, but I mean, you look at the landscape of professional wrestling, and again, we'll get a lot into that next week, but you look at either of the biggies, and their main event scene is full of former Ring of Honor guys. And so there's no doubt that they influenced the business in a major way over the last 20 years. And there's a very good chance that they're gone for good. I know they're calling it a hiatus. We'll talk next week about whether or not we really think they're coming back, but Ring of Honor being no more, at least in their current iteration, and is definitely a large story coming out of 2021 and a sad one, just like the loss of NXT in its original form is sad.
You know, between NXT, because, you know, I've really tried with NXT 2.0. I think, you know, when we did, I think the last show I was actually on, I was actually able to make it to, was the NXT show with Dave Poole, Diamond David Poole. And, you know, one of my questions was, or one of my statements was, I'm not sure if this NXT is for me or who this NXT is for. Clearly, I don't think they're hitting the mark of who they're shooting for, because I think they're, you know, hitting a hardcore, like 50 to 65-year-old demo. You know, that seems to be their top demo. And I'm thinking they're trying to skew a lot younger than that. But I did love it, the original NXT under Triple H's leadership, because it became everything I think we disliked about the main product for WWE. And then to see ROH completely, I mean, they've shuttered right now, you know, with the statement that they're reopening, but it sounds like they're bringing all their contract back, or talent back. Is not even contract talent. It's, you know, almost like handshake deals, which seems incredibly impossible to run long-term storylines or even short-term storylines when you're bringing folks in and out. So I'm not sure what the future of or ROH is going to look like, but I hope we see it in 2022 in some fashion and some stable fashion.
And that's definitely something we'll get into a deep dive on next week, because that handshake agreement sort of model is kind of how MLW has been running. And in many ways, MLW is kind of what Ring of Honor used to be. And in many ways, NXT and AEW, their war that really wasn't so much a war between the two of them. Again, we'll really get into this next week, but I would hazard to say, putting it out there, that their success is part of also what led to the demise of Ring of Honor, because that niche was being filled by much bigger pockets, and Ring of Honor used to be the only one to be able to fill that niche. So
a
lot to digest there. But between NXT 2.0 and ROH, you're talking about a lot of talent that are flooding the market, and then further flooded by what WWE is doing. But that kind of leads me to my top story, this is 2021, and it's probably my only repeat I'm going to have tonight, because once again, I'm saying the top story of 2021 was the continuing effect on the world of wrestling by the coronavirus and the pandemic. We start the year with no fans, or in some instances, fake fans, or cardboard fans, or digital fans. And then at some point in the year, you had the return of an audience for some, and we had live touring returning for some. And that, of course, made a huge difference in presentation and reactions and pushes. And so that became a big story. And then, as you've seen in the last even week or so, I know it's the beginnings of 2022, but between New Japan having Wrestle Kingdom in front of like a couple thousand instead of tens of thousands, or having a main event like, you know, Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar completely shuttered to the side, and long-term booking plans blown completely up because, hey, guess what? Someone popped a positive test. I mean, just like with the rest of us and the rest of the world, by far the pandemic continues to completely monopolize how wrestling is presented, consumed, hours before a show, can completely change everything. Tours can be rerouted. We could be, folks could go back to, some companies are still running in front of no fans or not actually touring. So yeah, continuing the pandemic. Hopefully, let's not have this as the top story yet again in 2022, but we're not exactly off to a promising start.
Absolutely. I think the coronavirus, and that probably gets us in trouble with the YouTube algorithm, for this show by even naming it. But it has definitely affected wrestling more than anything. I do think an honorable mention needs to go to the massive talent cuts that WWE has made in front of and behind the camera. I think, as far as on-air talents, like I'm talking in-ring wrestlers, I think the count is in the 80s in 2021 for WWE releasing talent this year.
You're talking an entire roster, an extremely talented, enviable roster that a Ring of Honor would have loved to have had, or an MLW, or, heck, I mean, you could say a Raw and a SmackDown would love to have the 80 guys that they let go. That's insane when you hear that number.
It boggles the mind, but we got to remember that there was a point when WWE just wanted all the toys, whether they were going to play with them or not. They wanted to have all the toys.
And that's in some way that you can wrap all these top stories kind of together under the blanket of the pandemic, because the lack of touring, the reduced amount of touring that they have done, or the settling, as it were, of the wrestling industry itself, and Ring of Honor going out, less places for guys to work, less risk of folks jumping. Vince knows that Tony can only hire so many guys. Tony knows he can only hire so many guys, and Vince knows he has too many guys. And pandemic has brought to light the fact, as like we've seen in our own lives, where people can work at home now, and we don't necessarily all need to be new ways of doing things. If Vince realizes I can make money and we hadn't even been touring, then why do I need to be gobbling up all this talent? So I'd say a lot of this is really related to the fact that he realizes, let them go. If they want to go, let them go. Good for them. It doesn't hurt me either way. And he's not really wrong.
Yeah, this is very true. I mean, there was a time where we could see a ton of wrestlers, tweeting about how they'd asked for their release, but it was denied. Now Toni Storm asked for her release, and okay, it's granted. She flies herself home, and that's the end of it. She sets home for her out of for her no complete clause and then she's done. We weren't seeing that for years.
Yeah. They would let a guy or a gal sit at home and just make them wait out their contract. Yeah, all right, you want to go? We won't use you, so you don't have to, be on television, but you're still sitting home for 3 months. Now it's just like, okay, best of luck. I mean, better, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. How many of these people get picked up by Impact, ROH, New Japan, MLW, and AEW. We'll see.
We'll see. And Doug, with that, let's talk some awards. Let's talk announcer of the year first, and let's each do runner up. I will go first. How about that?
That's cool.
I'll let you go first on the next one. But my runner up for announcer of the year, Jimmy Smith. Jimmy is the lead announcer on Raw, and I think is the best announcer Raw has had since the good old JR days. And that's only because it's been such a unmitigated disaster since then. I think that, before you either had no personality, wrong personality, or here 1 week, bad experiment, gone the next, like Adnan Virk was a horrible experiment, come over from the world of baseball, did not know anything about the world of professional wrestling. And Jimmy steps in and not only seems like he knows the product, he seems passionate about the product when he speaks, when he talks. He's smooth on the mic. There wasn't any of that rough, working through the kinks kind of thing we've seen with some of their other experiments. And he's sort of settled down the Raw announce booth, and I think he's done a heck of a job.
Absolutely. I do not disagree with that at all. I mean, it's some welcome stability to that team, I think. I mean, Michael Cole's planted there forever. But Raw's not been the same for me anyway. And I may be showing my cards here coming up, but since JR and King went their separate ways, and JR's not been the voice of wrestling on Monday nights, it just has not been the same. And I don't think wrestling's been the same. But I like the product still has got a long way to go for me anyway. But that is a good anchor there.
He is. Yep. And who's your runner-up?
You know what? This is probably going to come as no surprise to regulars of the show, but this is going to lean heavily to the Jacksonville crew tonight. And I got to say, Excalibur, I do believe is a great anchor to the Dynamite shows. And I think it's cool to just have a lucha in a mask announcing, first of all, but his knowledge of the product, and I don't just mean the AEW product, but knowledge of wrestling in general, I think really elevates anything he's announcing. If it wasn't for my, my nostalgia pick here, which is probably what I'm going to get called out on for this, but for my nostalgia pick, this Excalibur could have got the trophy tonight, but he doesn't.
Well, I think it says a lot about Excalibur and his knowledge in that even when he's not on the desk, he's the producer in the headset. So like on Dark and Things, announcers will go, all right, Excalibur, and thanks for that. When he's told them what the move was.
Right. Yeah.
And did you ever think that, 10 years ago, Doug think that Jim Ross would be sitting around waiting to find out what the name of the move was from the guy on color? No. But that's where we are. Excalibur is an excellent choice. For my top pick, and he was my runner-up last year, but my announcer of the year, and maybe this is me being just sentimental, but Ian Riccaboni. I've loved Ian Riccaboni from the moment he appeared on Ring of Honor television. You talk about someone who calls the action with a passion. He reminds me of Jim Ross in Jim's early days when he was young and really, really excited. And he has a lot of that Excalibur type knowledge as well that he brings to the main announce chair. And his Happy Wrestling, everybody, is my favorite sign off in wrestling by announcers. Hopefully he finds a job somewhere. Surely there's enough wrestling out there and enough wrestling announcing that someone is smart enough to pick up Ian Riccaboni if Ring of Honor does not ever relaunch. My announcer of the year.
Excellent choice. Excellent
Doug,
choice.
I think you might have foreshadowed yours.
I'm bad for showing my cards anyway. No poker face here, absolutely. But, good old JR, thankfully he's back from, his recent medical issues. And, JR misses a step every now and then, but he has an amazing team to his left and to his right with, Tony Schiavone and Excalibur there to pick up and just push on. I really do love the 3-man announce table. But just for the nostalgia pick, and like I said before, wrestling just isn't wrestling without JR calling a match. I get it. He is up in his years. He's no spring chicken, but I just love hearing JR call a match, and I'm happy he's continuing to do it to this day.
I'm not calling you out for being a nostalgia push. I think that Jim Ross is legitimately, if not one of the best. I would be torn between him and Gordon Solie. So I would have to just say it's either 1 and 2, however you want to order them. Those are the two best who have ever done it. And it's funny because, I remember that JR was adamant back in his Raw days when they went to a 3-man booth, how much he hated it, that it needs to be 2 men, that 3 men's too much, and they step on each other. At this point in his career, I think JR actually benefits from the 3-man booth, and I think they work really well together. And there is something about the black hat on Wednesday night that makes it seem like all is right in the world of professional wrestling.
And really, to give a nod to Tony Khan, there's a lot of old marks out there just like me that are watching, going, okay, yeah, there's what wrestling's supposed to sound like.
Exactly.
Tony Khan knows that, and then you've got Excalibur and Schiavone there to elevate.
It sounds like wrestling.
Yeah, it sounds like wrestling.
Sounds like wrestling is supposed to sound.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whoop. There we go. Breakout performer. we're not talking necessarily rookie of the year. It could be a rookie. It could be someone who had a career year and made it to the mainstream for the first time. Doug, I'm going to let you do your runner up on this one first. We'll do reverse order this time.
So let me say, one of the only things that stops this from being the top guy, and I'm not talking about anybody from FTR here, but from being being the top guy on this one is that I just cannot get invested in NXT 2.0. However, from the first time I saw this kid, the Steiner kid, Braun Breaker, or whatever ridiculous name they've saddled this kid with, is an amazing star. He is the future of whatever WWE is going to push. He will be at a Roman Reigns level within 5 years, if not sooner. This kid has something, but I just can't put him at the top of the heap because of NXT 2.0 still confuses me. Maybe I'm just a confused old Mark, but I don't know what's what. Am I the audience? No, I'm clearly not, but he's got something, man. Not enough for me to call him my number one, but he's got something.
So last year I had MJF as my runner-up and Keith Lee as my breakout performer. So obviously that momentum continues for only one of those two men.
Friend of the show, Keith Lee.
Let's see if I can do better this year. My runner-up is someone who is not new at all, but you talk about a breakout year. Eddie Kingston, man. Eddie Kingston. I liked Eddie Kingston the second I saw him on my TV. I believe that was maybe Ring of Honor many, many years ago in Ring of Honor. And then I got reacquainted with him with the rebooted National Wrestling Alliance, Billy Corgan's version of National Wrestling Alliance.
Yeah, that's what
when he is on the mic, there's just none better. And you're talking about a guy who's been then around on the peripheries of the mainstream for 20 years in either the minor leagues or just the straight up indies. And this year, Eddie Kingston is on Turner Television, whether it's TBS, or TBS now, TNT then, and stealing shows on pay-per-view, not just with his mic work. He's like main eventing shows with Jon Moxley, or having legit programs that make you feel like there's something like going on for real between him and CM Punk. We're talking about a guy who took him 20 years, but 2021, he had his moment and he made the most of it.
I love Eddie, man. Like, NWA was the first time I saw Eddie, and I was like, who is this guy? It wasn't even a match. I just saw him cutting a promo, and I was like, wait, what?
Where have you been? Because you can look at you. You're not young. Where you been?
Yeah, exactly. Who is this guy on my computer screen?
Thank you, Tony Khan, for that one.
Yep.
Doug, who do you have for the actual breakout of the year? Who's your top guy?
I've got a kid from the Orange and Black that I'm going to go for here because, again, I've made no secret that I am a huge AEW fan, but I didn't quite get Hook at first. I thought he was just some sort of Taz kid. Okay, we're going to put him on TV because your dad's here. Once Tony Khan finally let him wrestle, I was like, oh, okay, send in Hook. Let's do this. Let's shoot this kid to the moon. Along with Jungle Boy and a lot of other young talent that AEW is cultivating as homegrown talent at this point. Hook has an amazing future in AEW, similar to what I think Braun Breaker has over in WWE. I think time will tell. But Hook could be carrying a strap someday, within the next 5 years too. I just love the way this kid actually works. It's a completely different yet very similar style to Taz, his dad, right? Because Hook is a much more lean. Where Taz is this. Taz reminds me. Let me put this in D&D terms, okay? Taz is that stout dwarven warrior, whereas Hook is that svelte elven rogue. But their movesets end up being the same somehow, and I'm loving it. And the hair is just awesome too.
So I'll be honest with you, I didn't like Hook.
Right.
For the longest time, it's like, okay, he's Taz's kid, but he obviously must not be able to speak because
Yes.
he never is on the mic. He just stands at ringside, but he's so small, he doesn't look intimidating. He's probably just learning. That's why they don't put him in the ring. And
Right.
so he's just on air to learn and to make presence until they have him train. And then they put him out there in that first match. And I was like, okay, he doesn't look like a wrestler. That's when the bell rang. And then suddenly it's like,
oh,
what just
happened,
doesn't
right?
look like a wrestler. He looks like a shoot fighter. Like, what's happening here? And then, yeah, the hair and the Post Malone thing, I think that he's going to have a huge 2022 because he didn't get into the ring until December or
until the end of this year.
So, that's why he's not on my – I would not be surprised if he's my breakout. If he has the next 12 months the way the last month and a half has been, who knows? We may be talking to champion by this time next year.
Yeah, right?
I mean, he's that incredible.
I mean, at some point in the future, within the next 5 years, we're going to see, Jungle Boy v. Hook for a championship. That's where we're going.
That can bring chills up. Just thinking about that right now, I want to see
it. That is the future of AEW right there. And there or a three-way, or they're going to be vying for taking it away from MJF.
Well, you're talking about the future of AEW. For my top pick, breakout performer, I'm going the future of WWE. I did go Braun Breaker. While I prefer the old NXT 2.0 is starting to like there's things bubbling up for me each week. Like, oh yeah, this person's kind of interesting, or hi, I kind of like what they're doing with this team or this angle. But from the start, I got Braun Breaker. Like, you can't miss the fact that this guy is going to be the future of WWE, if not the business. I mean, he's that talented, and it's that obvious of a can't miss prospect. He's my breakout performer because not only has he been shot to the moon, but he deserves it. Great on the mic, great in the air. He's got some aerial ability, a powerhouse, technical skills. He is literally not Lex Luger, but he is the total package when you talk about what he has put together here.
He's more of a Scott Steiner than a Lex Luger, for being honest.
Yeah, exactly. A young Scott Steiner, before he got overly muscle bound, could do that Frankensteiner from the top rope or drop, throw a drop kick and hit you in the chin, get that far off the ground standing. Very much reminds me of his uncle. He's a real good hybrid of his uncle and dad together. And for me, I mean, it says the world that you're literally building an entirely new promotion. You can call it NXT, but it's an entirely new promotion that is being built on the shoulders of one man. If that's not a breakout performer, what a job by Braun Breaker this year. Breakout performer of the year for me. And now we're talking the opposite end of the spectrum. Someone that has been and is yet again comeback performer. Doug, I'll start this one since you started the last one. My runner-up for comeback performer of the year, CM Punk. 7 years, was it right? 7 years. CM Punk is away from not just WWE, but wrestling. And we're not talking just in the ring. Like, if he was in an interview and wrestling came up, he would quickly shut it down. Don't watch the stuff. Very derogatory. It seemed pretty obvious to anyone that was paying attention that CM Punk not only was not coming back to wrestling, CM Punk actively hated the wrestling business, that his experience had soured him completely. And the thought of him as he aged, especially ever getting back in the ring again, seemed astronomical. And yet Tony and AEW put up a viable alternative that financially was viable, visibility was viable, things that like an Impact or New Japan or something just wouldn't have to entice someone like CM Punk to come back. And by all accounts, he's enjoying himself. He's only maybe had one or two matches I would think are signature matches. He hasn't wrestled a lot, and most of them have been good. Once he got in the ring with Kingston, I thought it was great. I think that him and MJF might have the ability to be great. I think that Kingston might have kicked something in him that he didn't get in those first couple of matches. But if that's what rust looks like, we should all be so rusty because, I mean, from the start, he looked good. CM Punk, welcome back. Obviously the
Absolutely.
biggest surprise, I guess, of the year. But he's not my comeback of the year, and I'm not going to. I might be foreshadowing here myself, but I'll kick it over to you.
So that's interesting because I want to keep it in the straight edge society ballpark here. And let's talk about Serena Deeb, man.
Ooh.
She fell off my radar, a very, very long time ago. And I really did not know what Serena Deeb was even doing. And for folks who are a little bit lost with my reference, Serena Deeb, along with CM Punk and what was it, Joey Mercury?
Was Bull Buchanan? Was Bull
yeah,
Buchanan in
yeah, back in the straight edge society with CM Punk back in WWE in a day. Serena Deeb gets kicked out of straight edge society for imbibing when she wasn't supposed to be, because it is the straight edge society. But man, this gal, what is she called now? The woman of 1,000 holds. Serena Deeb definitely back on my radar after many, many years off my radar. I'm sure she's been in a lot of promotions, doing a lot of indie work, but the stuff she's doing with NWA and AEW, you have my attention, ma'am.
Yeah.
However, you're not my number one. That goes to someone else. But
well, so my number one, I honestly, Doug, I would never have guessed once they announced that CM Punk was coming back. And then once I saw him come back without rust and actually seeming passionate about the business, I would not have thought that there would be any way in the world that he wouldn't be my comeback performer of the year. And then keeping it in the AEW world, along comes a man that used to have his name order reversed and is now Bryan Danielson again. No, Bryan Danielson was not gone in 2020, but it was not the Bryan Danielson that emerged in 2021. The Bryan Danielson we're seeing now is the Bryan Danielson from ROH, the Bryan Danielson from his early WWE days. We were all happy when Bryan made his comeback. It was a miraculous comeback. He was never supposed to wrestle again. The fact that he could wrestle again was a beautiful comeback story, but it was obvious that either he was pulling back a little bit or WWE was keeping a little bit of the training wheels on to just don't do too much. We'll play up your character. And I'm not saying it didn't work or that he had some really fine matches. He's still Bryan Danielson, or Daniel Bryan at the time. But then something happened to Daniel in 2021. When you look at his work here in AEW, I don't know that outside of maybe Kenny Omega and Shingo Takagi in New Japan, I don't know that there is another wrestler on this planet that had more 4 to 5 star matches in 2021 than Daniel Bryan. Bryan versus Kingston, Bryan versus Minoru Suzuki, Bryan versus Omega, my God, Bryan versus Page. Mind-blowing. And that is what he did when he got to AEW, where he seemed like a new man. But really, if you go back and look at the first part of the year, you realize he had the best match got the best match out of Roman Reigns that Roman Reigns has had in his career. Then you had a great main event between Edge and Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. And so you got a guy main eventing WrestleMania and then ending the year main eventing in AEW and stealing the show there. Welcome back, Bryan Danielson. I guess Daniel Bryan, needed Bryan Danielson to come back because we all apparently needed.
We needed the American Dragon is what we needed.
American Dragon is back in a big way. Gosh, I can't say enough about his body of work in 2021. I never thought we'd see that Bryan Danielson again.
Yeah. So, for my number one, the comeback, again, keeping it in the straight edge society, you've touched on every reason why, CM Punk should be on this list at all. But, after 7 years, there was no way, I could not, call CM Punk this for, our comeback performer. I completely unintentionally, have included straight edge society. But it is what it is, man. I mean, after 7 years, like you said, you covered everything there is to say about Punk already. I'm not going to rehash it. I think, he could have very well ended up on your number one. I mean,
Yeah.
Brian
Oh
shows up
yeah.
a few times on my list down, as we get on down through here anyway, for a lot of the things you just covered and a majority of the things you did just cover and name. But again, bad poker face. So I'm going to shut up about that. So we'll build the suspense and lead up to that. But
I know.
My number one for the comeback of the year, man.
I know there may not be as much suspense, the fact that you are going AEW for both those choices, but so did I. I think that says a lot about honestly, that says a lot about who was hiring and who was firing, right?
It totally does, really. And I don't know what just happened there. I was like, I just like a whole lot of Doug right in front of the camera there.
Yeah, a whole lot of Doug.
Right.
Most misused, underused performer of the year. I don't remember if I went first. You went first. I think I went first last time. We'll let you go.
So it's easy enough for me to say anybody on the WWE roster that isn't Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar is the runner-up. I mean,
so WWE is your runner-up. Is that
WWE is my runner-up? If you are not named Roman Reigns or related to Roman Reigns, or you're not Brock Lesnar, then you were misused, underused, misused, in 2021, and I'm very sorry for that. Hopefully you find better luck in your future endeavors.
That is hilarious. For my runner-up, well, last year I went Ricochet and then Rusev and / Miro as being misused. Obviously, AEW course corrected big time and fixed their Miro problem. WWE did not fix the Ricochet problem, so I very, very much am tempted to go with Ricochet again, but because I didn't think as broadly as Doug, which is a great thing to do, and just say all of these collective men and women, I am going to go with folks that are no longer employed because they're so easy to pick out as being misused. And I'm going to say, for me, my runner-up, Karrion Kross. How do you miss on Karrion Kross / Scarlett Bordeaux? How do you miss on such an obvious hot act?
How do you screw that up and put him in some sort of weird gladiator gimp outfit
and leave Scarlett at home?
And leave Scarlett at home, right?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Interviews make with him pretty much that opening night when he jobbed out in like 30 seconds, he knew that the writing was on the wall already.
Yeah. I saw Renee Paquette. I'm not sure that's how you say her name, but the Mrs. John Moxley, formerly Renee Young from WWE. Her Oral Sessions podcast that she has Kross and Scarlett on there. Scarlett got the call first when they were on the way to the airport, and Kevin. She says, that she's waiting for Kevin to get his call, and he gets the call on his phone. And he's like, all right, here's mine. And she's like, no, they're not doing that to you. He's like, have you seen what they're doing to me on TV? Apparently it was a relief for both of them. So, and Kross looks a little weird now that his hair's grown out. And, but, I mean, Kross is my top pick for this misused, underused, because of all the talent that they've had. Sans Keith Lee, how could you screw up Killer Kross? How?
But they did.
And it was a good idea to separate them. How? I don't understand any of it. I don't understand the logic, but again, here we are. Killer Kross and Scarlett are free agents right now, just sitting at home waiting out their non-compete. So we're going to see them soon and used properly.
And you foreshadowed my top pick for most misused, underused. Someone who's waiting for that phone call to come. The great Keith Lee, friend of the show, as I like to say. Again, you could have gone 1, 2 and put those in either order, but of all the releases they had, I would say Karrion Kross, Keith Lee, with a honorable mention given to Hit Row, because you had 4 folks and a hot act that was actually cool. Like, yes. I mean, NXT or WWE, it's been a while since they had an edgy act that actually seemed edgy and cool without them trying to force feed us into thinking it's something. Hey, isn't this funny? Haha. No, that's juvenile. Hit Row was actually cool. So yeah, all those men and women are all a part of the misused, underused, and much like all the comebacks were in AEW, all the misused and underused performers come from WWE, and in Doug's case, all of WWE.
Again, if you're not in the Uso Reigns family, or you're not Brock Lesnar, you're screwed right now, man.
Love it. I love that. Tag team of the year. Doug, I know you love some tag team wrestling.
Man, I love stables. I love tag teams. And that's something AEW gets right time and time again. And I've got to say, this was a very, very, let me stress this, very difficult one for me. And I had to look at this from a couple of different angles. No wrestling pun intended, but a couple of different angles of talent and just storyline this year. And I'm going to say storyline won over. So let me go with talent first for my runner-up.
Sure.
I don't think that there's anything that the Lucha Brothers can do wrong in the ring. These guys deliver constantly and continually amaze me. Just spot after spot. And I know that, Jim Cornette, I can hear him yelling from Louisville right now that that's not what wrestling is. But, spot after spot, these guys are just amazing. And I'm pretty sure they're, Ray Phoenix, I'm not sure what he's made of, but he's
glue
around.
Yeah.
He's made of rubber or something. I don't know. Even this recent injury coming off of this past week, it's actually not a break. I'm reading now.
There's no way in the world that arm goes in that direction. Then I'm like, oh my gosh, that's gruesome. That was like Sid Vicious, with his legs in the opposite direction. It was so obvious. And then the next day he's like, oh, I'm fine. I'm like, what?
No, it's just a dislocated. I'm going to miss like a week. It'll be fine. Soft tablet and I'll walk it off. But yeah, Lucha Bros for me, man. For my runner-up anyway.
The former tag team champions are also my runner-up tag team of the year. So I don't need to expound on the reasons why. You did a very good job of encapsulating what makes them all. Both guys are special, but my goodness, Ray Phoenix might be the greatest high flyer on earth right now.
I will say I have a couple of Lucha masks, but my two Lucha masks that I've spent the most money on are Ray Phoenix and a Pentagon. You've seen them.
I've worn them before.
Exactly.
Who doesn't want to be Ray Phoenix or what's the AEW? What does he have to go by now? The full.
Oh, Penta El Zero.
Yeah, he's Penta still to me, but
he's still Penta.
No doubt about it. Lucha Bros are my runner-up tag team, and you could say they're my tag team of the year. You could flip these next two. It's so close, but I'll let you go and say who your tag team of the year is.
So, man, I lean heavy AEW, but Bucks aren't on this list. Bucks don't even hit top 5 this year because my top tag team of the year goes to the Usos, man. They have delivered consistently throughout the year with their association with my tribal chief Roman Reigns, and have continued to do so consistently. I love the just the tension and the release that was there in the beginning and everything they've delivered on. I mean, I think they've just been consistently great. I still remember to this day, I'm telling my 6-year-old about it the other day, the first time I saw the Usos, and they both come off, they both come off different rings together and hit the 5-star frog splashes. You got Tamina there, and he doesn't know what I'm talking about. He doesn't care, but I'm telling him anyway. But Usos, man, especially with this run with Reigns, good for them.
Good for them. Good guys, good talents, and happy to see them doing so well. They are definitely my favorite current WWE team. My tag team of the year, I'm going Young Bucks.
What?
They dominated the tag team scene in AEW this year. As far as they held the titles, this was the Young Bucks that they didn't allow themselves to be in the prior years in AEW, where it felt like they might have been holding back just enough to not want to make themselves the center of attention, being executive VPs of the company and all those handcuffs seem to be off for them this year, and they do what they always have done, and that is go out there and steal the show. Actually, my 1 and 2 tag teams of the year together had what was the best tag team match of the year on AEW pay-per-view, and they took their whole the heel Bucks. I mean, everyone loves the face Bucks and all the cool moves, but not since the days of Jesse Ventura have you seen such over the top arrogant style that just make you want to hate a guy.
I love heel Bucks, man. I do.
I mean, seeing just the way they dress week to week, they don't even have to do all the flipping and flopping for you to go, those guys are hilarious. This is must-see TV. Young Bucks, my tag team of the year.
Excellent call, my friend. Excellent call.
I think the biggest surprise of the year, it might be Doug going WWE for one of his top picks.
Right? I think I just got a text from Tony Khan that says, "What the hell are you doing?"
What are you doing? Email performer of the year. Doug, for me, my runner-up is a WWE performer, and for me, I could have been on the verge of entering into my breakout category had she not had a pretty good 2020 as well. But Bianca Belair had a great year, came into her own, came up to a main event level, literally main evented the first time that 2 Black women had headlined a WrestleMania main event. And not only did they do that, they stole the show when they did that. And even though she's maybe been misused, arguably, over the last few months, she's still main event. Once she was over, she's always going to be over. The fans are really into Bianca Belair. How could you not be? The powerhouse of WWE, impresses all the time. Bianca Belair is my runner-up.
That's very interesting because Bianca also my runner-up.
Folks, we do not confer on these. I have no idea what Doug's going to say. He does not know my choices. But apparently 2 bros with similar minds.
Because for everything you just outlined, I mean, it was very tough to not put her in the number 1 spot for this, but I do have another choice, and I'm sure no one will be shocked from what promotion they're from. But for the runner-up, I mean, Bianca is again a consistent deliverer. The WrestleMania match with Sasha. Everything Bianca does is great.
And then she had great matches also when Becky came back, and she and Becky tore it up. You give her someone halfway decent to work with, and they will go out and try to steal the show. She's fantastic. I
mean, Becky coming back really upset me. Not that Becky returned. Great to see the boss back, but that squash that she just straight up did with Bianca, there we go. We're done. I was totally wrong about that, though. WWE did not, do the NXT thing they do with every other talent with her. But yeah, she came in number 2 for me, man.
Well, we may duplicate again here, Doug, because I don't know how anyone could think that the dominant female performer this year wasn't the Good Doctor.
MD.
How can you not? Britt Baker, you talk about someone fully in command of her character, totally gets the game on how to get not, hey, I'm cool, like cheer me kind of reactions. She gets legit heel heat without doing it the cheap way. Everything about her is money. When I first saw her, I liked the idea, the gimmick. When I found out that it's not an Isaac Yankem thing where you're a wrestling, you're an actual dentist.
That would have been horrible.
Yeah, you're an actual dentist. I'm like, okay, let's see what you got. And honestly, what she had at first was a possibility. Like you'd see moments of it. And then suddenly it must have been an aha moment, because it went from moments of good in-ring action to just solid, brilliant in-ring action. And character-wise, give her a mic, let her talk all day. She completely dominates when that mic's in her hand, and it just completely filled out the character. I do not want to see Dr. Britt Baker losing that title anytime soon. She's had some very great feuds this year. I think there's still a few more that she can work without having to lose that belt.
I completely 120% agree with everything you just said, because Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, also, is my pick for female performer of the year for every reason you just outlined. I mean, and this is a girl who did not want to turn heel. It took, apparently some convincing from, if I'm remembering right, I think from Chris Jericho, from what I've read in interviews with her and some podcasts that she's been on, that Jericho pushing her that way to, try going heel and see how that works. I guess she had always worked babyface on the indies and even early on in AEW, but my God, she nails it consistently. Consistency.
All the time. All the time. Who knows? She may be a repeat. Unless Bianca gets better booking this year, I don't see anyone, at least on the horizon right now, that's in that league. Well, maybe the Boss, like you said.
Yeah.
The Boss and the Man both are probably up there, but I would definitely put her in the top 3 or 4 women's talents in the world. And my goodness, what a 2021. Let's talk men who had great 2021s, Doug. Who is your runner-up for your male performer of the year?
So I'm going to go with my tribal chief, Mr. Roman Reigns, because, again, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, you said that Doug is a Roman Reigns fan. I'm going to fight you for that, man. I'm going to say I'm never going to be a fan. WWE has forced this on me for years. It just doesn't work. I like Reigns as a heel in the Shield. I like him playing that Chewbacca role to, like, the Dean Ambrose Han Solo. But no, he can't make it as a performer solo. And no, it's just not going to happen. Man, my bad. Totally wrong. This dude delivers just like Dr. Britt Baker consistently. Not consistently enough to be my number 1 pick, but man, what a year this dude has had as my tribal chief.
So Roman Reigns was my pick for wrestler of the year, male wrestler of the year last year. And he was the closest I got this year to a repeat. He is my runner-up as well. Hey, what can I say? We didn't confer on any of these, but Roman Reigns is still completely in control of his character, is the coolest thing on either Raw or SmackDown, and it delivers in the ring more than he's probably given credit for. Like Doug, would never have seen this coming. Heck, he wasn't even my favorite member of the Shield, much less my favorite male performer in all of professional wrestling, as he was last year. This year, he is my runner-up. And Doug, darn you, I have a feeling we may be doing it again. So please lay out the case for our probably combined male performer of the year.
So there was a time when Kenny Omega was the unquestionable best wrestler on the planet. When AEW started, a lot of people said, what happened to that Kenny Omega? What happened to the cleaner? In the past year, we saw the cleaner. We saw Kenny go super heel, and I loved it. And something that pushes this over the top for me with Kenny is all of the physical issues that he has dealt with in the past year, including vertigo. This man has been wrestling with the ring essentially spinning the entire time and still been able to do what he has done. Let's talk. I'm getting ahead of myself, but let's look at like what what he did recently with Bryan Danielson in the ring spinning the whole time because of his vertigo and all these other physical issues that he's had, because he has put his body through so much. Yeah, I miss the cleaner. I'm glad to see him back. Sad to see him go. Understand he needs to recuperate, and get better. Best wishes to you, cleaner. Can't wait to see you again.
Doug, obviously you can tell from my reaction, we have another category where we saw it exactly the same way. I was close to like which order do I put him in, because I do believe Roman Reigns may be the best character in all of wrestling, and he was definitely the most dominant performer as far as performances in the ring and the way he was booked, strong. But the edge goes to Kenny for me, just because you had the character and then you add the match quality that Roman, quite honestly, just no one can really touch. But
unless you're Okada, then Okada, maybe you can do that.
You're talking about like the old school days, though, of our true world champion. This year, Kenny Omega was the guy that we always knew he was, that he just seemed like, I mentioned it earlier with the Bucks. Well, it was tenfold with Kenny Omega as far as giving, putting the brakes on himself to not put the shine on himself in the early days of AEW. All those training wheels came off, full on Kenny Omega goes out, conquers the world like an actual world champion, belt collector, having
belt collector. Absolutely.
Andrade and Vikingo and AAA, Rich Swann having 4 or 5-star matches with Rich and Impact, and then of course what he does in AEW itself with Danielson and Hangman and Moxley and Ray Phoenix, and just every time knocked it out of the park when he was given a chance. So enjoy your rest. Well deserved. Male Performer of the Year, best wrestler in the world yet again, Kenny Omega. Welcome back, sir.
Absolutely.
Match of the year, Doug. Well, let's go to match of the year. And I don't remember who went first last time.
Why don't you go this time, man? Go ahead.
Runner up. Ilya Dragunov defeats Walter for the NXT title, the NXT UK Championship, and NXT TakeOver 36. You've got to be kidding me. That's hilarious.
Let me just mark that off here.
That is ridiculous. I swear, folks, we not only would not confirm these answers, we barely talked in 3 months since we kicked him off the show and decided to let him back on.
My lawyers brought me back on.
Can't go wrong with that match. The two had a great contest on television in maybe 4 or 5 months before this, but the NXT 36 show comes along. Walter, who was the longest reigning champion in all of WWE, who seemed unbeatable. Ilya, the sort of underdog, undersized, and then allowed himself to be chopped into mincemeat. I mean, like literally, as the flesh seemed to be hanging off the man.
My chest still hurts from watching that match.
Oh, and like pretty much his eye was about to pop out of his head. I mean, his face was like all swollen. I mean, he was beat to death by Walter, who legitimately is one of the tough guys in the world of wrestling. And these two just tore it up. I mean, it's hard to differentiate when matches are this good, but this is one of the must-see matches that you have to go to for 2021. Doug, you're a runner-up.
You just said everything there is to say about it, brother. I want to go ahead and do my match of.
Sure.
And see where this lay.
You want to do it before I spell it out in case it's the same? Because it could be.
So let me do this one and see what happens.
Okay, see my reaction.
So it is an AEW match.
So far, so good.
Okay. But, and a lot of people didn't like it because there wasn't a definitive finish to it. But, damn it.
Maybe not. There's a couple I could put in this slot, but you go ahead. Keep going. Keep going.
It involves the Cleaner and an American Dragon?
No. Keep going.
Okay. That draw match between Bryan Danielson and Kenny Omega. I love that. These are two wrestlers that I adore. I mean, these probably are arguably two of the greatest wrestlers. I think Kazuchika Okada needs to be included in that conversation when we're talking about greatest wrestlers on the planet.
100%.
But American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, Kenny Omega, the Cleaner, this match they have to a draw. I loved it. It was just it was a work of art to me. It was this old school wrestling. And it was two guys having a hell of a lot of fun too, doing what they love to do. Even though one of them was doing it with the world spinning around him. That's my match of the year.
So, Doug, we came really, really close, like really close. Because
you
literally, I'll read from my notes here. This is the end of my entry for match of the year. I'm talking about Bryan Danielson, and I go, I could have easily as put his 30-minute draw with Omega on this list as well. I instead went for another Bryan Danielson match that didn't have a definitive winner, and that is his 60-minute time limit draw with Hangman Adam Page. That match was only 2 or 3 weeks ago, not the rematch that happened this week, which was excellent in its own way, but that's for a 2022 year-end discussion.
Absolutely.
But I have always been a sucker for Iron Man matches and time limit draw matches, like the endurance type of matches, the old Ric Flair 60-minute Broadways, as they used to call them, because only Ric Flair could really do them on a regular basis back then. But because of our shortened attention spans, they don't even attempt that stuff anymore. Now Iron Man matches will be 30 minutes because that's a long time to try to get someone's attention. And here was a match that was allowed to go 60 minutes without a pinfall. The only bad thing you could say about the match is there was no winner, but just the endurance, the pacing, to keep people's interest for 60 minutes, to have the crowd standing at the end wanting more after just sitting there watching two men perform for an hour. It was breathtaking and my match of the year. Although, as I noted, I could have very easily picked Doug's match of the year and been just as satisfied. That's how interchangeable those two were for me. And those both, Doug, were on free TV.
Free TV, and that is an excellent choice. I think that match needed to happen so that the rematch had much more clout and adds to Hangman. You know, if you put my booking hat on here, you go back to my match of the year, which was Kenny and Bryan. Bryan couldn't beat Kenny in 30 minutes. Hangman beats Kenny, then Hangman can't beat Bryan in 60 minutes. So then we have the rematch, and all that is great wrestling storytelling. You're building upon building upon building there to put Hangman over and put and solidify him as a legitimate champion. That is planning, not at the last minute going, well, I don't know, let's make it a 5-on-5 then instead, and we'll just give this guy the belt this week.
And you could even expand and say it's not just planning, that's good booking, because not only is it a good story from a plan perspective, booking wise, you take someone like Hangman, who I always thought, I liked him, but I never thought, wow, that guy's a great, great wrestler. And then he goes out there and has match of the year candidates with two men who are two of the best wrestlers in the world, and suddenly Hangman is made. He's a made man.
I've said it before early on in this show when we were talking about Bryan Danielson, or Daniel Bryan in WWE with Roman Reigns, and saying, he can make me look good in a match. At least you've been in the ring and had some formal training.
It's the same trainer as Hangman Page.
Exactly. You and Hangman have both trained with Boogie, which is awesome. Right. And I'm not talking about YouTube personality Boogie, but Boogie Woogie Man Jimmy Valiant. But Bryan Danielson can make anybody look good in the ring, and to build and push and create the level of champion that WWE AEW has now. Although WWE has two great champions right now in the Beast and the Tribal Chief. So
easy there, JR.
You are my Excalibur.
Oh, Doug, let's bring it home with some bold prediction. Bold prediction for 2022. Do you have a bold prediction? Last year, I completely flubbed it up talking about Ring of Honor going to be an entirely pure wrestling alliance, and how it was going to just completely elevate them as a company. Probably missed that one by a smidge.
Bold prediction for 2022. Triple H leaves WWE and creates his own promotion that looks very much like the original NXT and can go head to head with AEW.
Well, I'm going to have to find some time in my wrestling schedule for that programming, because I want to DVR it right now. I'm watching. My bold prediction for 2022. Again, folks, this is not what we're saying is going to happen, but we're going to try to be bold here. I'm thinking that the Forbidden Door gets its most surprising entrant in it yet, as the very fake war that there always was between AEW and WWE completely disappears, and that the two find a way to, when possible, work together. We saw it when Jericho appeared on the Stone Cold Broken Skull sessions, and we thought maybe that was a one-off. Well, word came out last month, so maybe this isn't as bold a prediction for me, but Tony Khan mentioned that not Vince, but WWE officials had got a hold of him asking if some AEW talent who used to be WWE talent would be able to participate in, I'm going to presume, whatever it is that they were, he didn't specify, but I imagine it's probably some documentary type programming that would require them to maybe talk to some former WWE talent. And Tony said he didn't see, he was open to it. He didn't say it was going to happen. He said he was open to it. Honestly, wrestling fans watch wrestling. The war was only really amongst the internet wrestling community who wanted to just look at ratings. We all were watching both shows. If this isn't the Monday Night Wars where anyone's trying to put anyone else out of business, Vince, as we noted at the front of the show, doesn't care to just say, sure, go on ahead, knowing a Toni Storm probably is going to end up in AEW if she ends up anywhere in American wrestling. Like there doesn't seem to be that same level of actual animosity other than in the imaginations of some wrestling fans and writers. If a rising tide lifts all boats, if it makes financial sense for Vince McMahon, he would probably be open to it. And Tony Khan, while being a more reasonable style of billionaire, I believe, also it seems to show that if it benefits AEW, like letting Jericho go on Stone Cold's podcast to talk about AEW, they'll let it happen. So I think we might see some more of that in 2022.
I like that. A more reasonable style of billionaire. I don't know.
Oh, and with that, Doug, we've gone a little long, but hey, it is a special edition. We're so happy to have you back.
I am glad to be back.
We want to again thank and big time David Poole, my wife Jerry, who filled in on a couple occasions on those instances you couldn't been there. Here's hoping that a 2022 is better for you as well, to join us more often here on the show, because we benefit from your presence. And this was a lot of fun. I loved it. It was one of my favorite shows we ever did when we did this last year. I'm already looking forward to taking notes for the next 360 whatever days now we're at, and do this again for 2022.
I just want to say thank you, brother, for doing all the heavy lifting at the pretty much the last quarter of 21, as things outside of the wrestling show demanded my attention more than I could give to the show. So thank you for that. Thanks to everybody watching. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you have any disputes or disagreements with us, put it in the comments below. Let's talk about this. Let's have a conversation.
Let us know matches that we should see that we didn't mention. We want to. We can't catch it all. Again, catching it all. You see, we've been scrolling at what our upcoming schedule is. So next week we're talking Ring of Honor. We talked about them a little bit at the beginning, but we're going to talk about the legacy of Ring of Honor, the demise of Ring of Honor, what brought it about, where some of the Ring of Honor talents we think are going to land, and then what, if any, future we see for Ring of Honor. That is next Sunday. That is our regular time, not this Sunday, but next Sunday, back on 8 o'clock Eastern time. Folks, thank you for joining the Two Bros Wrestling Show. I'm Kevin.
I'm Doug, and I'm back, baby. Boom.
See you guys.
Good night, everybody.